Rich, you sent out an email to everybody last week and said, look, we need to be buying the ethanol and selling the RBOB as a spread. And before you get into this stuff, unless you have a chart on that in here, can you just comment on that?
Sure. And we weren't saying to buy the ethanol and sell the unleaded. But what we're saying was we've been watching for quite some time this unleaded going straight down, and while energies were going straight up. And this has been going on for about 2 months or so. And we've made the point of saying, you know what, guys, even though we've got this solid linkage with corn to these energies, that for the past few weeks, since this coupling has been removed, we cannot say that corn's going to be rallying straight with these energies anymore. One thing we did see last week was, you know what, maybe we're starting to see some of the relationship get back and find some stability. We saw ethanol prices actually stabilize, and for 2 or 3 days in a row last week, we did see ethanol actually start to pick up right alongside the energies. So in other words, we are getting this coupling back in place between corn and energies. So that's why this problem with Goldman's and the crude does directly affect us on the corn here.
Okay, well, I interpreted your email to just do it as a spread, and then because I got a really happy client. So just for those who want to get on that trade, the ratio is to buy 1 ethanol contract, and you probably want to do it in either June or July, and then sell 1 mini RBOB. And it's very close to a 1-to-1 ratio. And it's a real good trade to be putting on right now. And that's kind of a long-term thing. If you look at that chart that Rich put out, and maybe Rich, you could put that out on the website this week.
Certainly could.
Okay, great. So just look on our website if you want to see the historical on that spread. Okay, Rich, what about these grains?
So we've got, number one, some problems and pressure coming in here as far as this Goldman activity, as we all know about. Second thing we can speak of here is this the planting pace. We do actually have some fundamentals saying, you know what, maybe things are changing a little bit compared to what we were thinking maybe 2 weeks ago. And we've got laid out here this graph. We put the same one up last couple of weeks. We're going to do this one more time here, but as we know, we're going to have some extreme planting numbers here posted. Average guess for this afternoon's report is for corn to be 19% planted. That'd be a gain of 16%. And keep in mind, in one email we sent out to everybody this morning to the brokers and branch offices was the idea that we're breaking all previous records right now as far as last week's planting pace. Typically we're only seeing maybe a gain of maybe 2 to 9%, and we said that this 2004 pace. 2004 is a big year for us because that's when we had the first really record-breaking attempt into the 160 range for yields. In 2004, we said we had about a 14% gain from the previous week. So bottom line is we're on a pace with what was the best type of yield scenario we've ever had. And keep in mind that that 2004 year, we blew by the previous years, which was a record as well, 15 bushels an acre. So it was amazing as far as that 2004 comparison. So, and we'll start with this next week. We'll actually start showing that case of early plantings do mean big gains in yield. And we'll start actually comparing that, and we can actually show some numbers saying corn at this pace means we're going to beat trend yield by this much. So we'll start looking at this in the coming weeks here. As far as this trend yield issue, to the guys who have been following this corn for a while, or maybe who are new to this industry here, we've got to keep this chart up here. This is a chart of yields for the past since 1950. And when we say trend yields, you can point out, you know what, if you just draw a line between all these guys here as a mathematical model, it simply shows, on average, corn yields going straight up. So when we plant early, not only are we going to beat previous years' type of records, simply because we've got this trend. We're starting out from a higher, quote-unquote, trend level. So back in this 2004, let's look at this guy, this big jump right here. You were looking at something along the lines of a trend yield of, at that time, they're considering maybe 135, 140. So they beat trend yield by 15 bushels. This year's trend, you're looking at 160 or so. What if we beat that by 15 bushels? That's 175. So let's kind of put in mind that, you know what, for right now, we're going to say, you got to say trend yield is what you got to plug in your models and things like that. However, let's just play with some numbers and see what happens. What we got here is this, as far as this table right here, is this idea of let's look at this 2010 scenario using what we consider trend 160. And as we talked about this for several weeks, And that gives us a pretty moderate level here of a 1.6 billion bushel ending stock. Let's plug this number in here. In fact, back at the conference, we used 173 as our big yield type of scenario number. And we're not going to go into all the numbers, but we can see that plugs in, and we look at a 2.1 billion bushel ending stock. So a half billion increase. And as far as the prices, look at the down here in the very far right corner, that's a 320 cash price, which means futures at 350. And at some point, to make that 350 average, you've got to have some prices down near $3 or so on the December, maybe a little under that here. So as far as this whole issue here with the yields, let's just make a quick point saying early planning means big gains on yields. And if we do have that, we now have some price targets in mind. And if this stuff continues, maybe we can see what's going on here.